Good morning, Mike. How you doing? Happy Thursday, April 30th.
The last day of the month. Good
Yeah,
morning, Steve. I'm well. I am well.
good. Good, good, good.
How
Glad
are
to
you
hear it.
today? Look at I like your screen color changed.
You like it? No, it is good. White I felt was leaving me a little washed out, and we can decide today whether or not this leaves me a little washed out in my bright white shirt.
Looking
This
good.
is
Is
this
it
is what
like
we
a
used.
sunset? What do we got back there?
I don't know, it's a sunset, sun rising. I don't know. Maybe it's because I was up early this morning and this is sort of what was in my head.
There you
But
go. I
yeah,
like it.
and obviously, and again, like so, we get two contributors to Open Source Workplace, Onyx and Space T, that obviously I want to help promote. So Onyx is owned by John Schultz, who's been fantastic to the channel.
Oh
Space
yeah.
T is yet to be introduced. Akash Ravi is a really bright guy. Space T is a young company, kind of similar to iOffice, plays in that sort of field of workplace analytics. So yeah, and obviously a couple of things that I'd love to start with. And last week we talked about what day of the week it is and what every day represents
Right.
something. So
Right.
so we joked about it yesterday, and I pulled it up today, and so I'm gonna read out, and then I want you to tell me which one probably fits you the best, and obviously I'll do the same. So April 30th apparently is Honesty Day. Maybe it's because the April Fool's Day is the first, and Honesty Day is the last day of the
Ah,
month. Who knows? Who
makes
knows?
sense.
So then here's the real the tough one. Oatmeal Cookie Day. It's
Not for
also
me.
poem in your pocket day,
Poem in your
and it's
pocket.
poem in your pocket, and then International Jazz Day.
All
So
right.
which
I
one do
could
you
do the
think best reflects
let's
you?
do jazz hands. I'm gonna do jazz hands.
Jazz.
Not a
Okay.
big oatmeal cookie guy. I'm more a chocolate
Oh,
chip. So let's go with, and I
fair
love
enough. Fair
music. You know
enough.
me and music. So how about you?
Yep.
Are you going to celebrate Honesty Day today finally? Because every other
Well,
day
it's
it's a
about
little bit
time. I
sketchy.
have an honest day. It is about time, and since it is that day, I should
Yeah.
aspire to keep an honest day.
Let's get the
And
real
and and
Steve
to be
truth.
honest, do you see what I did there? As to be honest,
To
but
be
anyway,
honest.
yeah, to be honest. So also there's certain weeks are celebrated, and this week to date, I'm happy to report that I'm keeping in tabs with this week being Go Diaper Free Week. That up to Thursday, I have maintained that free diaper week. So that's good.
Congratulations. That's a big step for
Yeah,
you.
it
That's a big
is.
thing.
And this thing keeps going, man. It keeps going. It's awesome. And
Well,
it
you're
may
sitting
not.
there at your computer all day, every day. So the diapers do come in handy.
It
Oh,
certainly
it's
feels that way
terrible. What
sometimes. That
happened to
is
this
bad.
show?
That
This
is
used to be a
bad.
workplace,
I know.
professional
I
workplace
know.
commentary show.
And then
We've digressed.
absolutely, and hopefully we'll get back to that at some point.
Yeah,
But
at some
here's
point.
here's another one. So the month of
Okay.
April, and it's important to mention because it's the last day of April, and people need to know this so that they have the ability to do something about it if they have yet to do something.
Okay.
April, and it won't be an issue for you. I know like the type of guy that you are, so I know you're going to be fine. April is Couple Appreciation Month, so all those couples out there, this is your last opportunity to show your appreciation before that month expires.
Does that mean I have to appreciate the other part of my couple, or do I appreciate other couples?
To be honest, Mike, if I have to explain this to you, then we got bigger problems.
National Honesty Day. We're not sure exactly what it means. That's good. Good stuff. And
There
I'm
we
sure you
go.
found all these on that strange new device you're using, the internet. I'm still figuring that out. Last
Yeah,
time you mentioned it was from the
that's true.
internet.
That's true. From the internet, yes,
I've got a few
it is.
chuckles.
But yeah, no, we did. And then obviously we wanted to talk about gratitude. We wanted to sort of fold that in every day because it helps. Whenever we're grateful, we're happy. It's hard to be downbeat. So we want to start each day with a gratitude. So Mike, what are your thoughts today?
Well, it's funny. Yesterday I talked about my dad and
Mm-hmm.
making me smile. You asked about a little bit of different angle, who you're thankful for, who made you smile, that type of thing. And I talked about my dad giving his silly jokes during our family Zoom calls on the weekends. Well, last night was midweek check in just via phone call. And I said, Dad, I said, I mentioned you on the OSW daily live stream this morning on YouTube. I'll send you a link and you can hear what I said about you. And he says, no, just tell me what you said. So we didn't have time for our little 30-minute YouTube stream. So
Yeah.
that was funny. That made me laugh that he couldn't take time, but he was appreciative of the mention and the smile, and glad it was resonating, the jokes. But yesterday I had a chance to talk to an old friend who's we've been quarantined, and he's got his life going, and I've got my life going, and he has a totally different perspective in a lot of ways than I do, because it's just a different experience. And I won't go into the details of that, but my gratitude, I'm thankful for, is that different perspective. And I think that's something we should
Mm,
talk about today. Is
mhm.
it's I think we're getting into this kind of bubble of talking amongst people that are just like us, knowledge workers, people in the real estate industry, corporate real estate, facility management, workplace. We're all able to do our jobs, although we've adapted or had to adjust things. Remote work is something that we're maybe used to, or have at least ramped up and gotten better at. Whereas there are other people where they are still doing old fashioned phone calls. They're not doing Zoom meetings. They're doing, or sometimes they can't work at all. And I want to get more into that, because
Mhm.
I've been listening to
Yeah.
some of the statistics about the people who are really struggling in this economy, and how we need to maybe help address that if we can. I don't know if people in our position are in a position to help those, but as far as being thankful, and that gratitude piece, it's thankful for that other perspective that opened my eyes to things, especially his attitude towards my concerns about the economy, or my concerns about the industry. We talked about conferences, for example. He knows I travel a lot for conferences, and as I've talked to you here, it's very disappointing that those in-person meetings, those gatherings in expo halls and on stages in front of crowds like IFMA and Cornet have gone away for at least the near term, maybe longer term. Uh, and he said, it's really, what an opportunity. He said. I said, what do you mean? He said, it's an opportunity for some innovative company, innovative people, creative people to come in and step in and do something special, unique. I'm sure somebody's going to be really taking advantage of this. So that was something I'm grateful for, because it reminded me that I have things I can do differently. I started the live stream, then we started this daily YouTube live stream. That was innovative. That was creative. It was born out of necessity in
Mhm.
this pandemic environment. So we have to look at things that way, and put a positive spin on them. And that was really helpful to me yesterday. How about you? Who are you grateful
No, I
for
love that.
today?
I love that. I love that. Yesterday I had a moment where I sat down, and it must have been, I don't know, 5:30, 6 o'clock. I just sat down in my chair, and I sat back and I thought, I really love what I'm doing. I have a great job, and I love working at NASDAQ. I love what I'm doing, open source workplace, the opportunity it allows me to meet and connect with so many people. And I just had one of those moments where I just felt really great about what it is I'm doing. And I'm just fortunate that, and my gratitude is I find something that I love. That's my gratitude, that
Great.
it's something that I really care for. And it was a warmth that flew through me, and and I just thought, oh, this is something I have to share in the morning with Mike. So
Cool.
yeah, that's my gratitude for today.
Do what you love, and you'll never
Yeah.
have to work a day in your life.
Yeah,
That's what they
and
say.
and we'd obviously go back, dive into what your thoughts were, and there's because when I say that and when I realized that, then there was um a lot of communication and content flowing last night and this morning. I'm fortunate that I'm able to do what I love. There's other people that aren't, and what are they
Yeah.
going through, and how are organizations playing for that, are doing that. So
Yeah, well, let's talk about some of that, if you don't mind.
mhm,
I sent you, I
yeah,
don't know if you had a chance to see it. It was this morning. I sent you the
yeah,
update on the LinkedIn Confidence Index. We talked about
yep,
it on this live stream a couple of weeks ago. They released their first significant kind of study of how people's attitudes were during the pandemic and the lockdown. And they said a lot hasn't changed. I mean, the summary of it to me was, a lot hasn't changed for people like you and me. And it doesn't
yep.
surprise me that you feel grateful. I am certainly thankful. I feel blessed to be able to do what I do, and enjoy it. And anything that we are dealing with are little inconveniences. Anything that we're talking about, not being able to go out as much as we once did, not being able to meet face to face, those are inconveniences to us. But there are a lot of folks that are really struggling. And that's why I wonder if we could address them, and if there's any way we can help them. I'm not sure through these
Yeah.
media, these interactions, but the freelancers, the contractors, a lot of the folks that, this gig economy that had really started taking off in recent years. If you didn't have a steady job with a steady paycheck where you can continue to do it remotely, if you're dependent on conferences, dependent on people gathering in a restaurant and wherever it might be, but it's even in our industry, it's these conferences, there's designers, there's marketing people, there's convention organizers, there's the people who set up and tear down all the booths, the booth creators, all those companies are sitting
Mhm.
idle right now. and they're just like they're people we interact with on a regular basis in under normal circumstances in normal times, but we're not now, and they're really struggling. So I don't know what we can do to help them if there is anything. But have you thought about that, or what was your takeaway from
No,
the confidence index?
it was exactly the same as you, Mike, and that's why I was like wanted to really re-emphasize that moment that I had yesterday, and then I read what you sent through this morning. You may have sent it last night. I can't remember which it was, but I did read it, and I was like, yeah, I went through exactly the same emotion that you're going through, and I was thinking, okay, is there something we can do? One as a channel, open source workplace, as a company, is there something we can do to sort of create something? I don't know if it's a fund, I don't know if it's a charitable donation or something we can, allow people to donate to, through these videos or something. I don't know, but I went through exactly the same thing you did. All those individuals, people we rely on, people we often don't take notice of, who are just in the background, but they're the ones that ensure everything happens. Yeah,
Yeah.
totally agree with you.
And we're dependent on them when it comes
Hmm.
down to getting back to
Yeah.
conferences, and we want to ramp back up in 2021. It may not be till then, but when we do get back to these big trade shows, if they're not around, if they don't survive, we're going to be in trouble. I don't know if see, I don't know, and it's just off the cuff, but I'd love to maybe help. Again, creativity, innovation, they have to come up with a lot of it on their own. That's the other thing too. Is you're going to find that there are people, and maybe this is the wake up call. And it's for all of us. It affects us in all different levels. But I've struggled with this anxiousness, this impatience, I'll call it. I'm not a very patient person. I want to get back to the normal we used to know, but I know it's not going to be the normal we used to know. So I'm calling it the new normal. And everybody's talking about when are we going to get to the new normal? What's it going to look like? As I saw some tweets this morning from our British friends, over there who love to, you know,
Stir
tease
it up a
these
little
things,
bit.
stir it up a little bit. Yeah. And that
Yeah.
reminds me, we got to make sure you ask me about Tim Oldman and the live stream with Joe and Joe
Yeah,
Sutherland and
yeah,
Tim
yeah.
Oldman
Absolutely.
yesterday, because I asked him to, stir it up a bit, and he did. It was good. But there was something like, is the new normal the fastest cliche phrase ever created? Are we already tired of it? And some were saying, yeah, we're already sick of it. And one person commented, are we now in precedented times because it's become the new normal? Are we now, instead of it being unprecedented times, which I've been guilty of saying over and over and over again, is it now
Yeah,
precedented times?
yeah,
When does
yeah.
that switch happen? So always a sense of humor when they're talking about these things, but it's a difficult situation. Back to those in need and those that have to reinvent themselves. That's the key. We have to figure out how to reinvent ourselves. We all do to some degree, and for some it may be a bigger, you know, innovation than others, or a bigger change
Mhm,
than
mhm.
others. Really rethink the business model, really rethink how they can take their talents, and they do and have incredible talents, whether it's design and marketing and promotion, and put it to use in this current world we're living in. Well, I'm not going to call it
Yeah.
the new normal, but this is the reality we're faced. And even over the next several months, as we have talked about, the return to offices and the return to the workplace is not going to be the same. It's a tentative, temporary situation until we get past this COVID-19 situation, and we have to be prepared to stay afloat during these times. I don't know. These are just
Yeah.
thoughts.
No, no, I hear you. And, one could argue we actually are in the new normal today. And the next normal is what's coming. And I think it's going to be, like you said, a very fluid, progress to that point. But to sort of continue the conversation, and a couple of other things that I saw and where my head went thereafter was, it was something a friend of ours, Christina Herrera, actually posted. And it was something that, it's a narrative that I've seen in a few places. But obviously we give Christine the shout out because friend of both shows. And she asked the question. He says, "There's a lot of people are asking the question: if my employer opens the office, do I have to go back? And is there legal reasons by which organizations can make their go back?" And the point was more to create a conversation around it, and it's stirred up a lot. And I said that wasn't the first um message, note, posting that I had seen. Ryan Anderson and Herman Miller, a good friend as well, had also posted an article about the same concerns. There are people who once opens up, employers may open their doors and may require people to go back. And then if they
Mm,
don't go back, what impact does that have on their unemployment benefits? Do employment benefits go away because their former employer who's opened their doors has offered a job and they don't feel safe and secure returning? And you sort of think about that. You
wow.
think about that perspective, and you think about the industry and all those different people we spoke about a little earlier. How many of those folks will be in that situation, right? You think of building operators, co-working operators. You think people who run buildings,
Yeah.
operators, engineers. You think about facility managers. At what point do they run that risk? This is a legal, obviously, conversation that I certainly don't want to get get
Yeah.
into or give an opinion, but it's more of to raise and give the profile to this question, and how do we get to answers, and how do we give people comfort, right? We all talk about, for us to move forward, we require safety and security. And obviously there's a lot of people that are living with anxiety and stress because they don't feel that right now. And again, tying it back to the report that you sent, the LinkedIn survey, that's when it really hit home, because the people, depending on the narrative and your situation, you use different terms. And that's what hit home to me,
Yeah.
was the terms that you and I talk about put us in the place where we feel comfortable, secure in our jobs. The other narrative that we probably don't speak enough about is the narrative that actually are those people who are really concerned, who do have issues, and issues being, you know, they're going to have to make a conscious decision at some point when their employer opens the doors, and are they at risk of losing any benefits? And there are probably those people who are earning more income with their benefits than they actually will when they return to the job. It may have
The
been you who,
unemployment
who
benefits.
mentioned
Yeah.
that. Yeah, it may have
So
mentioned to
many
me
thoughts there.
yesterday.
Yeah.
So.
It's something that I brought up with my friend yesterday as well, because we were talking about restaurants not being able to reopen, not because the government has shut them down. When that lockdown is lifted, or restaurants are allowed to reopen, I read an article in the Wall Street Journal that said some owners of restaurants are saying, I can't reopen until late July or even August, because unemployment benefits run through July 31st here in the US. And there are people on his payroll making more on unemployment than they would if they returned to work. So this is a wicked problem, as Rex Miller called it. There's so many little
Hmm.
levers here. You mentioned so many things. The safety and psychology lever. How do people feel? And every individual is going to have a different, you know, take on that. Do I feel comfortable going back? What Christina said, do I have to go back to work? Isn't it ironic? I mean, I was talking yesterday on the live stream with Joe Sutherland, who was a guest on my podcast last fall, 6 months ago. And one of the big takeaways from that podcast conversation, we were talking about, this is pre-pandemic times where workplace leaders were talking about the fact that, yes, in many cases, because of technology and because of our ability to remote work and be mobile, people don't have to go to the workplace anymore. And we were trying to create, as workplace leaders, environments and spaces and cultures where they want to go to work. So I don't
Yeah.
have to go to work. I want to go to my workplace because that's where the action is. That's where my friends are. That's where the culture says I'm part of a team. I'm part of a community, and I get to be more productive and more uh, collaborative in those spaces. Well, all of a sudden now we're like, do I have to go back to work? Not because I don't want to, but it's like the opposite. Do I have to because I need to keep my job and therefore, pull that lever of risk and psychological safety down to a point that allows me to keep my job because the fear of losing the job is something. So many different elements here. And then to add to it, and I want to see what your take is on this, because it's something that I've been thinking about based on a Seth Godin article that I read, a blog, I guess, a day or two ago, where he talks about people being wired for selfishness. He's a marketing guy. He knows how to read audiences and people and what works in marketing. And it was kind of funny because he said some things that has really struck me as pretty true. In the early stages of this pandemic, as we were getting aware of the dangers of the virus, and the media and the government leaders were trying to motivate people, trying to persuade people to social distance and protect those others, right? It was right around spring break time, and the media message at the time was, go ahead and think about the long-term perspective here. Don't think about yourself, think about others. You're older, the vulnerable, your grandparents. You need to social distance for those people. And what happened? The beaches were packed at spring break. It was all
Yeah.
very much, people ignored that advice because we don't do well when we're thinking about others and thinking about long term. But when they said, hey, young people can get sick and die too, think about yourself, save yourself. Don't go out today, because if you go out today, you might get the virus and die. All of a sudden, people were motivated to shift their behavior. And that was a deliberate, he said it was a
Mm.
deliberate media play. And it was something that, unfortunately, that's what works in our society, is you have to
Hmm.
put urgency to things. And that's where I'm going to think that this piece comes together in the next few months, as governments loosen restrictions, businesses reopen, and all of a sudden is it your choice to go back? Do you feel safe? Or is it, hey, we need you in the office, make a decision, short term, selfish? You got to decide, is it better to stay home and feel safe? Or do you have to face that and go and keep your job and keep your income? So it all ties together. It's a
Yeah, and I think,
complex
and
situation.
and I think it is going to be two buckets. One is going to be those who have the ability to make that decision, and those are the fortunate ones. I think there's going to be some that maybe don't have um, that ability, or that, not, I don't want to say that right, but in essence, they don't have that opportunity to actually do that either. And yesterday, the Barclays CEO actually stated that, you know, why would I ask my employees come back to the office whenever they're all many can work from home? We need to be rethinking our real estate. We need to be thinking, okay, how will people work in the future? And reevaluate. And he's reevaluating the whole his whole portfolio and how he's going to manage that.
Yeah.
And it's a really interesting perspective. And I know you wanted to come back to Tim Ullman, so maybe this is the time to fold that back in, because I know he had a few comments yesterday around this and a
Yeah.
few perspectives, which is quite interesting.
Well, I'll start with the question we ended with, which was that one that I asked him to give a best guess about the long-term implications on the real estate market on this, years down the road, when this is in our rearview mirror or past the vaccine. It was the question I asked you yesterday,
Hmm.
and it's something I don't think nobody wants to give an answer to, because they're not fortune tellers. And he had the sense that it was going to all level out, that yes, there'll be some adjustments, but he is a man who studies data for a living. And these spikes in certain attitudes, spikes in certain trends tend to balance out over longer periods of time. So he didn't commit to anything about the real estate market particularly, but he used that as a guiding principle for thought. Um, but something else he said that I wanted to bring up to you, and it was actually somebody who was, I didn't even pick up on it during the live stream, because in that hour when I'm
Right.
fielding the questions from the audience and thinking about what I'm going to say, and you hear these great comments coming, I got to go back and watch the recording of yesterday's live stream, because there was so much just stuff being poured. It was like drinking from a fire hose, as it often is with my brilliant guests. And um,
Yeah,
there was somebody who
go
go
on.
ahead
No, no, no,
on
no.
this
I was just
tweet.
going to fill the space until you got up in front of you. So if you have it there, let's go.
Yeah. So the tweet was on missing spontaneous team collaboration in remote
Mm,
work. So we talk about this, right, all the time.
yeah.
Is there a way digitally and through technology to create those collisions in the office, in the workplace, that are so valuable to human interaction and creativity and
Yeah.
innovation? Well, Tim said this, and I remember him talking about, there's no way to do this. He said, diarized serendipity is not a real thing. So you can't put it in your diary, and that's another British ism, but you can't
Hmm.
schedule serendipity, is what the point is. And the tweet was kind of funny, because Aaron posted a scene from Friends, where it's a GIF that shows Friends saying, Monica says, "What a small world," and then Chandler says, "And yet I have never run into Beyonce. I have not yet ever run into Beyonce." So it's like, what a small world. But yeah, but
Right.
it doesn't happen. So I don't know. What are your thoughts on that? Because we've talked about it. It's been a conversation on LinkedIn. You posted a discussion, and it sparked a lot of discussion around this idea. And have you changed your mind about the possibilities, or do you think we're gonna, you know, need to get back to face to face before these serendipitous interactions take place?
It's a great question. And my brain's like it's running in so many different directions right
You're
now.
still
So I'll
thinking
try
about
to
the
be
Friends quote, the Friends reference. Were you a fan of that show in the 90s?
I love the show. I
Yeah.
fall asleep to that show every night. But going back to the question, and where my head was going, Mike, was if you think about an organization that has multiple offices all around the world, right? Serendipitous collisions or connections only happen in the office at which you operate, right? So we're not wired to have those serendipitous connections or conversations with people in other offices, right? There are studies that show that actually you feel more connected to those people you have inside for 100 feet. Beyond that, they might as well be in another building, another city. That's just how humans are, and that's how we connect. And that's why there's been a huge shift to the open office with the lower tier, so you can see further and see more people. And that's also why there are floor plans that are sort of you meander through the office because you then get to see more and more eye contact. Now, in a virtual world, how do you replicate something like that? Well, you replicate something like that by creating groups of diverse people, different offices, different disciplines, and you stimulate conversation in those things. Perhaps organizations have to create ways or different types of groups that we wouldn't traditionally create in the workplace. It could be talking about a sports, it could be talking about religion, it can be talking about whatever those things are. But how do you bring people with common feelings and emotions together who are from diverse backgrounds within the organization to talk about those things that then those serendipitous conversations can then take place. Obviously there's the apps, and I know you're not a fan, and I understand that if it's on the calendar, are you going to have those little things? But it only takes one little spark, right? It only takes one little comment. So I think the more we're exposed to people from different disciplines within the organization, different geographies, then that can be the spark to happen. Now, I'm not going to say it's possible and it's not possible, because that's what's going through my head. Is it going to be the same as when you're grabbing a cup of coffee and you bump into somebody and you then are able to step away and actually sit and have those little conversations that are a little 5 minutes, but actually they create that connection with somebody who then you can then take away an idea or a concept to your team and vice versa. Um, I know I'm probably not answering your question concisely, but I think as my brain evolves and I sort of think about the comment, I don't want to say you can't, because in essence, there are organizations that are 100% remote that do it, and
Yeah.
they do it daily. So I think tactically, organizations, we have to um, adapt to the environment and create, but you have to, I suspect you have to be more intentional. And
Yeah.
maybe they're not, that maybe the intention takes away the serendipitous, but I think that you create those by actually making them conversations about different things, or you create different environments and opportunities for people to connect. I don't know, and that's one of the reasons, and that was one of my biggest thoughts is, how do you do it? And and Tim gave a really great example to sort of allow people to think about it. You think of a software development team who each day will do a stand-up scrum, right? And how do they then take that environment or that stand-up scrum where they all run through, they're all explaining stuff. Now you can do it virtually where they all similar on Zoom and they're able to do that, but does it feel the same? I
Hmm.
don't know, and only those people who work in that. And I think the more we connect with the teams within our own workplaces, within our own organizations, and we start to have focus sessions with those individual teams, can we really start to learn about what's working, what's not working? I guarantee you there are things that are working so much better that we would never ever have anticipated that are working so much better. And there are going to be things that we thought, well, obviously it'd be better in a virtual world. They're going to say, no, that's not the case. And it's going to vary so much. I think, each organization, each real estate workplace team need to start doing sessions with their organizations to actually learn those new habits and new traits, because there will be a percentage of the population that will not want to return to the office. And how do we how do we still innovate? How do we collaborate? How do we create those new ideas and generate new products without these serendipitous conversations?
Yeah.
A
Well,
lot
we're
in
gonna
there.
have to
Sorry,
do it.
man.
We're gonna have to figure it out. Be innovative. Be creative. That's what human beings do. Be adaptable. I think the more I hear people sharing these opinions, and the more I focus in on what we can do today in this I won't call it the new normal, in the world in which we operate. We have to be
There you
thinking
go.
that way. And to wrap in Seth Godin's advice, we have to motivate people through giving them a vision for why it's in their best interest to do whatever it is we want them to do, and motivate them through showing them the near term benefits, and not try to depend on our long-term others focus, although that's the ideal and that's something we should strive for, is to care about others more than ourselves. But the reality is we're all going to be reacting to this if it helps us in the near term and we can see the benefits. So that's where we have to frame these conversations, and I hope we'll continue to explore these ideas as we go day by day, week by week in the coming months.
Yeah, no, absolutely. But thank you. That flew by today, so I appreciate
Boy,
the
it did.
conversation. It was really fast. So no, have a great day, Mike, and we'll chat again tomorrow.
All right, Steve, thank you. You
All
too.
right, man. Take care. Thanks.